Welcome back. This is part 2 of the psychology of persuasion in politics. And in this segment, we're going to talk about a model called the stages of change. This model was originally developed to address issues like weight change and addictions. To be honest, I don't know of any research that says this is applicable to political activism. But in my mind, I saw a lot of things that were similar and relevant, and I think they can be very helpful about understanding this model in informing us on how to work with an individual. So again, now we're getting down from that big 10,000-foot overview. Now we're probably at the 1,000-foot level in terms of understanding how to go about this and how to be effective. The stages of change model actually has 6 aspects. It defines people's thinking and their readiness to change is what it's doing. And it turns out that the last 2 aspects really aren't relevant for us. So I wanted you to know what they were, but we're not going to talk about these 2 aspects at all. The stages are one is pre-contemplation, where you're not thinking about it all, you're not aware there's a problem. Then you go to contemplation. Well, geez, maybe there is a problem here. I ought to think about it. Stage 3 is preparation. Well, okay, there's a problem. I have to figure something out. Stage 4 is action. Okay, I've got my game plan. I'm doing it. And we're going to talk about those 4 stages. The last 2 are maintenance, which, again, in addiction makes sense. Okay, now year in and year out, how do I maintain myself? And then, unfortunately, relapse is part of it. We expect relapse in any kind of addiction behavior that we're trying to change. But I'm not going to worry about Democrats going back and becoming Republicans right now. So we won't talk about those last 2. We'll focus on these first 4 because those are the relevant ones for us. And again, our ultimate goal is an action that gets people voting for us, working for us, donating to us. We're looking for specific actions as a result of this. Now, what's nice about this model is that it then tells us, okay, you have to meet people where they are. You can't take somebody who's never thought about the Democratic Party or being politically involved and go up and say, hi, will you make a donation of $50 to Kennett area Democrats? That's not going to work. You can ask somebody who's already in the action stage and knocking on doors for us, you can ask them, would you consider a donation? The odds of success are much higher. So the idea of this model and the usefulness of this model is if we can figure out at what stage the person is, then we can design our questions and our responses to be things that will help them move along and that they're ready to consider. We can meet them where they are. And the goal is, if they're in the pre-contemplation stage, we just want to move them to the contemplation stage. If we do that, that's a win. You just want to move them from whatever stage they're in to the next stage. Okay? So let's go into these a little bit deeper. And I'll use an example of, let's take somebody that we want this person to be an activist in the Democratic Party. Ultimately, our goal is action down here. We want them knocking on doors and making phone calls, and we want them donating to the party. That's our goal. So somebody who is in the pre-contemplation stage might be an independent. No, I've never been associated with the Democratic Party. Okay. Or it might be somebody registered Democratic, but they say, yeah, but, I really don't want to get involved. That's for other people. Or they may say, yeah, I'm a Democrat, but you can't really change anything. It doesn't matter what you do. Washington is going to be the same. All those are pre-contemplative kinds of people that they're really not there. They're not ready to become involved yet. So there's a strategy for working with those folks. And there are 2 key elements to that strategy. The first is you validate them wherever they are. And because you have to ask them, are you interested in helping the Democratic Party? And they're going to start giving you reasons why not. So whatever they say, you try to validate their experience. You say things like, I get it. I've talked to a lot of people who have kind of dropped out of the system. I understand that. That's a validation. You don't have to agree with what they're saying, but you want to find some words to acknowledge that you hear them, that you've listened to them, and that what they're thinking is reasonable. So you take whatever they're saying to you and you find a way to say, I get it, I understand, I used to feel that way too. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to validate. And they may say some things where you absolutely do agree with it. Okay? So we need to just not be going into a situation with our script, which is what most of us have right now. And if you've got no other resources, yeah, we have to work off that script. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, I'm with the Democratic Party and I'd like to ask you. That's not really effective if they're not ready to hear it. So this will give you another resource, another tool in your kit to listen to what they're saying, figure out, oh, this is a pre-contemplation person, so I need to do this. I need to stop asking them for money, and I have to back up and say, okay, I hear you, I understand you, that's reasonable. So that's step one, because that opens them up. That makes them much more likely to listen to what you have to say next. I mean, think of your own life. If you're trying to explain something to somebody, and they say, yeah, I get it, I understand you, you feel a little bit better, don't you? So that sets the stage for the next step. And the next step, when you're working with somebody in pre-contemplation, is to gently ask them to do some self-examination. You just want to raise questions with them. You don't want to tell them the answers. You just want to get them thinking. So you've never done this. So you're an independent. Are there any issues that are important to you that you feel strongly about? You're not going to ask them to join the Democratic Party. You're just going to say, well, are there any issues that you feel strongly about? Yeah, I feel strongly about gun safety. Oh, and what do you think about that? Yeah, I really think that there ought to be background checks and people should, they'll start telling you what they believe. And then you can say, well, what you believe is pretty much the same thing that the Democratic Party believes. Oh, isn't that interesting? So you're not telling them to be a Democrat, but you're helping them think through who they are, what they are. And then you can ask, again, you have to play this by ear. You could go to another issue. Well, what other issue is important to you? And they'll tell you something, and you can say, so what do you feel about that? Listen, yeah, I get it. Validate, acknowledge it. And did you know that the Democratic Party's position is pretty close to yours? Oh, that's interesting. So, no, I don't want you to become a Democrat, but you just might think about this some more because actually the way you think is pretty much the way Democrats think. And that's a lot. That's a lot for them to absorb when they, for whatever reasons, they were independents or non-active Democrats. They may say, their argument might be, no, nothing I can do will make a difference. So you can ask them, have you ever seen any situations? Do you know of any elections where it was close, where it made a difference? And maybe they have. Or you could then tell them about an election that was close. But you follow what I'm saying? It's a gentle nudging. It's not a in-your-face hard sell. It's very gentle where you're asking them to consider more issues, to look inside themselves. Are you comfortable? Because if you don't get involved, it means those activists who do get involved, like the Tea Party people, who don't believe what you believe, they're going to be in control. Are you comfortable with that? Wouldn't you like to have some control? You're absolutely right. You cannot do it alone. But when there's 1 million people doing it, it starts to add up. Do you agree with that? So you're asking them questions. You're introducing a little bit of new information. It's not a hard sell. It's a gentle, have you ever thought about this kind of approach? Okay, so there's really two elements of working with people who you identify as pre-contemplation. You validate their experience, so you join them. You go to where they are. I hear it, I get it, I understand, I see it. You're not alone. And then the second thing is, so have you ever thought about this? What do you really feel? Are you comfortable with that? You can even do this with Republicans. Are you comfortable with where your party is today? So you knock on a door, and we may send you there because we see on our resources that this is a very liberal Republican. And we know a lot of Republicans, especially in Chester County, were told 30 years ago, you have to register Republican if you ever want to get a job. So they did, but they're really Democrats. So you may find that person who says, well, I'm a Republican. And so it's, well, are you comfortable with where your party is today? You're just asking them to reflect on their own experience. When I did that 2 years ago, knocking on doors, 80% of them said, well, no, not really. And then you can begin that conversation. Well, what is it that you're finding is, that's disappointed you in your party? And they'll tell you this issue, this issue, this issue. Same thing. Okay, well, actually you're kind of close to the Democrats. So you can work with anybody if you're hearing that that they are in this pre-contemplative place. When they tell you, no, I'm a Tea Partier, and okay, don't bother. Thank you very much, and move on. Because I guess there's a zero stage, which is hopeless. But anyway, so this is how you work with pre-contemplative. Those are the two rules. It's not going to be complex, this whole analysis. It's validate and ask questions that encourage them to do a self-analysis, because most people just don't think about stuff. And when they're forced to think about it, their feelings and their thoughts come to the surface, and now it's like, oh, geez, I didn't realize this about myself. Okay, so that's the strategy. That's the tactic. In the contemplation stage, yeah, they have given it some thought. Yeah, the election happened, and I've never been involved in my life before. And I've kind of been wondering, is there something I can do? But I don't know that I have the time, and I don't know, what I would do. So they've thought about it, but they haven't made a commitment. They're not planning yet. They're kind of back and forth making that decision of should I become involved with the party or not. And same thing, you validate. I hear you. Same validations. It's tough. A lot of people are making that decision right now. The election has caused a lot of people to reevaluate. You're not alone in that. Those are all validating statements. And again, yeah, there were periods in my life when I was not involved, but this stimulated me as well. So you can relate to them and do a little bit of self-disclosure, all in the purpose of validating their experiences. Now you want to ask more self-exploration questions. In both of these phases, we're validating and asking them to think more about their lives. So you can say, what kinds of things might you be interested in? What, you might gently challenge their notion that I don't have time. You can say, well, how much time do you think you need to be able to commit? Oh, I don't know, 15 hours a week? And well, actually, no, if 1 hour a week would be really, really nice. People are donating 1 hour a week. So you're listening for the barriers that they've come up with. Well, I don't know enough about the issues. I don't like to talk to people. They will tell you if you ask them in terms of the self-exploration, so what's holding you back right now? What are the issues? What are the things that you're thinking about that are keeping you from getting more involved? And they'll tell you. Things like, I don't have time, or I'm not knowledgeable enough, or I don't think it'll be effective. So once you hear that, and that's probably the biggest message of all this, we have to listen. Before we tell people what to do or ask them for anything, we need to listen first. You'll be gathering that information. And then you can ask these gentle questions like, so how much time would you like to give? How much time do you think you need to give? And then you can give them some information. Actually, an hour a week really would help us a lot. Oh, I didn't realize that there was something I could do that was valuable. You don't like to talk to people? That's no problem. We need people to address envelopes. You know, there's all sorts of stuff you can do. So again, gently encouraging them that whatever the barriers there were to their getting involved, you can help reduce the barriers. And you can answer some questions. But again, the goal here is just get them thinking more about how they might be involved, why they should be involved, why there's value in their involvement. And again, listening for specifically what they say. You're not going in there with a script. Well, we know that people don't like to do this because they think. You want to know what this person in front of you thinks. And then you want to respond to that. And again, just two things you want to do. Validate their experience, whatever it is. And then second, ask them to start thinking about what it is that's keeping them stuck. Because now they're contemplating, but they haven't moved. So they're dealing with, you know, some pros and cons, and they're just not convinced yet to move forward. So help them explore that. Help them think it through. Okay? Is that making sense in terms of how you... What question if it's not making sense?
Oh, I've got a lot of questions.
Okay, so hopefully we'll bring that... After we go through it, we'll come back to the questions then. Okay. But again, that's how you approach this person. The person who's in the preparation and planning stage is, you know, you talk to them and they're saying, yeah, I want to get involved, but I don't know how. Okay, now we're into a different ballgame. They're already on our side. Now you just have to work with them to pretty much close the deal. So there, you don't have to validate as much. You can praise. Now we go to praise. Now we're praising good behavior at this point. So yeah, that's great. I'm really excited that you want to get involved. And yeah, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who now are ready to get involved. You know, you do all of those things. And again, it's a little bit different. Validation is, I understand you. Praise is a reward. So any kind of praise you can offer them about making that decision. They're moving forward. Great. So how do you want to get involved? Well, I'm not quite sure. Okay, so now you can sit there and say, well, what do you like to do? And again, the more you get people to come up with their own ideas, the better it is, as opposed to you saying, well, here's a list of 17 things you can do as a volunteer. It's much better if you say, what kinds of things do you like to do? And I'll let you know if there's opportunities for you. Well, I'm really interested in voter registration. Great, we have a voter registration team. You know, or I don't like doing this. Okay, no problem, you can do this. What do you think about that? Always exploration, asking them what they want to get involved in, but now providing them more resources and more information about how to do it. You know, I've only got 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week. Great, you can do any of these things with 3 hours a week. So you want to work with them to help them develop their action plan. That's what planning and preparation is. So again, a little bit shift now from what we do in those first two stages. Now we're into praise and actively problem solving for them and giving them information and moving them to say, okay, that's it, I'm going to do this. That's what happens in the planning stage. In the action stage, now they've made their decision. I'm doing this, I'm going to do phone banking, and I'm going to commit 4 hours a week to phone banking, and I'm connected with the local office, and I'm having a good time. Now our role changes one more time. It's support. Are you running into any problems in your phone banking? Are there questions you can't answer? Here's a couple of pages of facts that you can use, because these are the most common questions that our phone bankers are coming up with. Are you having problems with the system? Is the computer not working? Providing lots and lots of support. That's our role when people are in the action stage. And one more piece, which is, you're active? Good. Can I interest you in doing something else? Now that you're comfortable with phone banking, canvassing is not really so much different, except you're face-to-face. So now we can kind of up the level of commitment in the action stage. So those are the two things you want to do if you find somebody who's in action mode. Provide any kind of support that you can, and then encourage them to step up their game another notch. And in fact, you guys are all in the action phase, aren't you? You're already involved. And so this event right now is support, isn't it? So you're experiencing it. I'm doing it to you, what you should be doing to other people who you find in the action stage. Let me wrap this segment up because we're running a little bit long. So this is the end of the stages of change segment. The next segment will be about those communications. This is the on-the-ground, ground zero level of what do you do when you're now actually face-to-face talking with somebody or engaging in some kind of an internet interaction. That'll be the next segment on communication skills.